Jujutsu Kaisen has the best power scaling I've ever seen in anime, and it all starts with its power system. Cursed energy. Cursed energy derives from the negative emotions of humans. Grief, stress, sadness, anger, all of these count when talking about cursed energy. Since every human experiences these to a certain degree, curse leaks out of them. Obviously, in environments such as school or prison, these emotions run higher than ever, causing excess amounts of curse to build up. This extra amount forms into cursed spirits, beings that are entirely evil and bent on haunting humanity. Curses can even be built from long-standing fears such as natural disasters or disease. Depending on how feared their concept is, curses can range from stupid grade 4 spirits that are no threat to intelligent special grade curses that can destroy cities. Fortunately, these spirits mostly reside in Japan. However, unfortunately, most people can't see them because of their metaphysical nature. This is where curse users come in. The few people who have high enough amounts of cursed energy can see curses, and even fewer can exorcise them, killing them. Curse users, sorcerers, whatever you want to call them, exercise curses by manipulating their cursed energy, which brings us to our next category. Through training, sorcerers can contain their emotions whilst also using cursed energy. This form of combat is known as Jujutsu sorcery. Since using curse is the only way to kill spirits, sorcerers imbue their energy into various different styles of fighting, whether it be straight hands, weapons, or even corpses. Applying energy to taijutsu is very basic, however there are some techniques such as Black Flash that make this simple fighting style quite effective. Putting curse into weapons is also pretty straightforward. Plus, with enough time and output, items can become cursed tools. Even non-sorcerers can use cursed tools because they already have cursed energy within them. It can even go so far as putting energy into objects for reincarnation, such as Sukuna's fingers. Cursed corpses are also a good example, acting as their own life forms whilst using other people's energy. As it happens, a user's cursed energy can have its own properties too. It's rare, but an example is Kashimo, whose cursed energy has the properties of electricity. Now, these are all easy applications of cursed energy, however the main hurdle that sorcerers have to get over is flowing it efficiently. See, curse starts out in the stomach and moves out to the rest of the body. Low-level sorcerers distribute energy in linear ways, but as explained by Todo, the flow of energy for an elite sorcerer is difficult to read. True sorcerers use their mind, body, and soul to fight, but that's not the extent of their abilities. Beyond manipulation, many sorcerers usually employ their distinctive cursed technique. Cursed techniques are an individual's specific power, allowing the use of cursed energy in numerous different ways. The skill manifests around the age of 5, and the power of said ability is 80% intrinsic, meaning you could either have a trash ability or the most unstoppable power at birth. No changing it either. As a result, there are entire clans dedicated to passing down the most OP abilities through blood, but succession is not always guaranteed. Cursed techniques have pretty much no limit as to what they could be, ranging from voodoo magic, warping space itself, or destroying opponents with speech alone. Along with these are extension techniques. Exactly what they sound like, extensions expand on the original power. For example, Nanami's ratio allows him to create a weak point on the target at the measurement of 7:3, but with ratio collapse, he can destroy the surrounding environment regardless of where he strikes. Beyond extensions are maximum output and maximum techniques. Yes, they sound similar, but are different. Maximums are basically the same thing as extensions. However, unlike extensions, maximums are the highest evolution of a cursed technique. So Jogo can set people on fire with disaster flames, and with his maximum, he can summon a meteor. Maximum output is different in that it is not an evolution of a cursed technique. Output indicates that a user is putting the most amount of cursed energy into an ability. So Gojo's maximum output blue and regular blue are no different besides the level of cursed energy. Now, the problem with maximum output techniques is not only the energy being used, but also the time to activate them. To excel at Jujutsu is subtraction, a quote quote from the narrator basically meaning the best sorcerers are the ones that can use techniques the easiest. Pretty much every power in JJK needs some type of incantation, word, or hand seal to activate. The more apparent and lengthy these are, the more powerful the curse technique will be. It can even get to the point of performing entire rituals and dances to amp a technique. Now, it is possible for a sorcerer to have multiple curse techniques, however it's said that too many can fry the brain, as a sorcerer's technique is located in the right prefrontal cortex of the brain. Overuse of a single technique can destroy the brain as well, but there is a way around this. Reversed curse technique. In contrast to the previous section is reverse curse technique or curse technique reversal. Since curse comes from negative energy, the reverse of that is positive energy. Kind of. It's not just as simple as thinking good thoughts or something. Reverse curse requires a sorcerer to multiply negative energy together in order to create a positive. Using this positive energy, they can heal themselves or others from lethal injury and create an inversion of their curse technique. So while this negative to positive equation sounds simple, the vast majority of curse users can't use RCT, showing how difficult it is in practice. In fact, only 11 humans in the whole show can use it, and most of them can't even explain how they do. Side note, curses cannot use RCT. Yes, they can heal themselves, but positive energy is actually destructive to them. High-level curses just have such a mastery over their energy that they can heal themselves. Yes, it is explained that cursed energy can't heal wounds, but remember, curses are made up entirely of energy, so they're not really healing, but rather reforming their bodies. The next thing I have to talk about is barrier techniques. Barrier abilities aren't specific to any one person. Any sorcerer could potentially use them. Even so though, this power requires high levels of skill even for the most simple applications. To construct a boundary, a curse user must first create a formula for shape, volume, construction speed, and more. After using the empowered words and gestures, putting cursed energy into the formula, a barrier is constructed. Curtains are some of the most basic barriers. Their main usage is to hide jujutsu activities from public view, whether that be training or exercising curses. Another function of curtains is to keep certain types of people or an individual out of a given area, which requires even higher levels of skill. Empty barriers are clear spaces that have nothing in them. They're made up of hexagonal panels and can be freely shaped into any setting, like how Kenjaku shaped one into a movie theater where the film was his entire evil plan. That's funny as fuck, and I love this series. Pure barriers are the next level up. Numerous pure barriers exist across Japan, suppressing cursed spirits and powering up barrier techniques of jujutsu sorcerers. Tengen, the barrier god, maintains these pure barriers and many empty ones across the country. This includes the enormous boundary that covers most of Japan, and for perspective, the pure barriers only exist after thousands of years of development. Unfortunately though, Kenjaku hijacked all of these in order to create a bond barrier, an even more powerful blockade that he used to create the culling games and its districts. Obviously though, I can't speak on barriers without explaining the most infamous technique in Jujutsu Kaisen: domain expansion. Domains are the peak of jujutsu sorcery and the most powerful ability one can have. Due to this, they are exceedingly rare, with only the best of the best being able to use them. To start, every being has an innate domain inside their brains that acts as a reflection of their curse technique. Domain expansion is the act of creating a barrier, releasing an innate domain inside, and infusing that space with a curse technique. As said before, creating a simple barrier requires a complex formula for shape and volume, but now the individual must consider the internal and external conditions of the domain. See, the inside of a domain expansion can be however large a sorcerer wants, regardless of the outside appearance. The best example of this is Dagon's domain that creates an entire coastline with deep water and everything. And even the outside barrier can be expanded to the range of a city, all the way down to the size of a basketball. Taking into account the internal and external conditions, strength, size, and formula for the barrier, on top of infusing a curse technique, domain expansion is like creating an entire open world video game in just a few seconds. extremely fucking hard. At the same time though, it's extremely fucking worth it. Once inside their domain, sorcerers gain a buff to curse techniques, as well as a guaranteed hit effect. As in, the target will be hit no matter how fast they move or defend. This sure hit effect is what makes domains so lethal. It's also appropriate that if any of the requirements aren't reached, like no curse technique or bad barrier, then the sure hit effect will be taken away completely. Domain expansions have to be perfect, which is why they are insanely rare. Even the best sorcerers cannot master this power, unless it's a non-lethal domain. This can be seen with Higuruma and Hikari, where their expansions place special conditions on the battle, but they don't have attacks built into them. Regardless, creating spaces that are this massive consumes crazy amounts of energy. Those with domains can only use them once a day, barring Gojo and Sukuna, but they're exceptions because they're monsters. Expansions burn out the user's curse technique as well, making it unusable for a period of time. Going back to Sukuna though, some may ask how his domain works properly without a barrier. Well, as we know, domain barriers are used to enclose innate domains. This is akin to a painter using a canvas. Sukuna, on the other hand, expands his innate domain perfectly without envisioning it in a separate space, in an act that the narrator describes as painting the sky, a truly divine technique. They didn't have to glaze him with that second sentence though. So domains, a high level technique that requires the use of a barrier, innate domain, and curse technique in order to create a space in which the wielder has a guaranteed hit on their target. A power like this seems impossible to avoid, but of course, all the weaklings have to create some shit to fight against it. This is where domain clashes and anti-domain techniques come in. Domain clashes involve two people using expansions at the same time, which neutralizes both sure hit effects. At that point, it becomes a game of tug-of-war, where the weaker domain is enveloped and destroyed. While it seems simple, remember, domains require special conditions and formulas to create, so having to share that space with someone else is even harder. This is why a three-way clash is pretty much impossible. The anti-domain techniques work in a similar manner. They all hail from different places and involve creating small barriers of some sort. Simple domain and hollow wicker basket neutralize a domain's barrier, therefore making it incomplete. Falling Blossom emotion creates a shield around oneself that instantly blocks sure hit attacks. Domain amplification basically just puts on your own domain as armor and can nullify curse techniques. But this can only be accessed by those with full expansions, whereas the other techniques can be used by anyone. The last major section of Jujutsu Kaisen's power system is Binding Vows, a common technique that I don't see many talk about, mostly due to their vague nature. Binding Vows are pacts made between sorcerers themselves or other people. This ability usually involves some sort of trade-off or exchange initiated by a verbal agreement. The trade can be pretty much anything. For example, remember how Sukuna's domain expansion doesn't have a barrier? Well, in exchange for the easy escape route, the range of the sure hit attacks are expanded to 200 meters. Another and the most common type of vow is revealing one's hand. In an amazing way to give exposition, characters can explain their abilities to the opponent in order to gain more cursed energy output. Binding vows made between two people are more dangerous, however. As explained by Kenjaku, when breaking a binding vow with oneself, the penalty is just losing what has been gained. But when breaking a vow between two, the punishment is completely unknown, to the point where it was implied Mahito would just die if he broke his vow with Mechamaru. Speaking of Mechamaru, the whole reason he made a pact with Mahito was because he was afflicted by Heavenly Restriction. Heavenly Restriction is the greatest type of pact and is different from a vow in that it is granted at birth. Going back to Mecha, he was given an unusable, painful, deformed body in exchange for high levels of cursed energy and output. At his peak, he was reaching special grade levels of power. A reminder that the rank of special grade has only been given to 4 sorcerers. An instance of heavenly restriction in contrast is of course Toji. In exchange for unsurpassed physical strength, Toji has no cursed energy, no cursed technique, manipulation, nothing. He couldn't even see curses until he heightened his senses. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I love JJK's power system. The fact that we can have all these domains, techniques, binding vows, and they're still a regular person that uses basic hunting tactics and a strategy to defeat their opponents is amazing. Toji, along with all the other powers and abilities I explained, show how much thought Gege Akutami puts into his world. It's to the point where Jujutsu sorcery feels like its own study, which makes sense because that's what Jujutsu High is. Overall, JJK has one of, if not the best power system in all of anime. But all of what I said today is just scratching the surface, so if you want to see more explained videos about this series, then please hit the like. Please!